how to make an eco-friendly wicking bed. This self-watering planter can be built by yourself with minimal purchases. Christophe Bichon from the association The Sense of Humus in Montreuil organizes permaculture workshops.
It's equivalent to what we call Riviera containers. The idea is to have a water reservoir that will feed the substrate through capillary action. In general, this water reservoir is located at the bottom and the substrate at the top. Capillarity will occur through different types of materials. It can be clay balls, a cotton wick, or a synthetic material. It is an extremely ingenious system that replicates a natural phenomenon, allowing water to rise along the wick. The main advantage of the wicking bed is that it ensures a relatively significant autonomy for the plants that will be planted in the planters, ranging from 1 to 3 weeks depending on the water retention capacity of the container. You can build a wicking bed anywhere, both outdoors with large volumes and on a small balcony or terrace. Wicking beds have been developed in really substantial sizes, so they can be squares of 4 meters by 1.20 meters wide. It requires very little maintenance, which is the main advantage of the wicking bed. You just need to remember to refill the water reservoir regularly, usually every week, every 2 weeks, or every 3 weeks. If we use a plastic container, by default it is already waterproof, so I don't need to add any waterproofing. However, if I use a material such as wood, I am required to add a sheet of PVC or an EPDM membrane to ensure absolutely perfect waterproofing, and this will also protect my wood. Next, we will lay down our bed of clay balls if we are using clay balls. The downside is that they are quite expensive, and from a carbon footprint perspective, they are not very good since these clay balls are heated to very high temperatures. I can also use repoussolaine, which is a volcanic rock. It requires very large quantities, which can be quite expensive. A geotextile is needed to ensure the separation between the soil and the clay balls, because if I put my soil directly on the clay balls, obviously the soil will sink, and I will lose the water reservoir effect. The wicking bed is always watered from the bottom. You don't water the soil, so it will require some PVC pipes to supply the water reservoir. And another essential thing, in a wicking bed we need an overflow so that excess water can drain out of the planter. To do this, threaded tubes are used, tubes that can be easily found in the lighting section of a hardware store. You can use commercial potting soils, but the problem is that they often contain peat, which is a renewable material but on extremely long geological timescales, and we have a big issue in Europe with peatlands that are overexploited. I rather recommend a mix of compost and topsoil. It has very good retention, and above all, it's a waste product that has been transformed into something quite beneficial for plants. In a wicking bed, you can both sow and plant. It's really the equivalent of working in open ground, except that unlike open ground where the soil can potentially dry out during a heat wave, here you have soil that will always be moist. So it's suitable for all plants, but especially for water-hungry plants. And obviously this doesn't apply to all succulent plants, which are adapted to very arid, very dry environments and don't need to have their roots in water all the time. It is always recommended to mulch. Regardless of the type of container used, it will limit water loss due to evaporation, and most importantly, it will enrich the soil through the constant breakdown of microorganisms.
When planting, water the soil thoroughly well, then moisten it completely if it dries out, so that the capillary action works perfectly.